Okay, it looks
Yeah,
like we're recording has started. Thank you, Kasia. So we've a good group on the call for starters. So thank you all for taking the time today to join us for our first spotlight session. So welcome all. I suppose first of all, just to do a couple of introductions as to who's on the call and who's going to be speaking. So firstly, there's myself. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations at KineMatik. Looking down through the list, I think some of you may know me already. So I'm involved quite a lot in the partnership with OpenText and sales and so on. We also have Derek. Derek, do you want to just introduce yourself briefly?
Hi guys, yeah, my name is Derek Hayes. I'm Director of Services here at KineMatik, and I was involved in the Marine Atlantic deployment of the PM solution.
Super, thanks Derek. And then we have both Ryan and Alison from Marine Atlantic, so we're going to be talking to them later on as well. So Ryan, if you'd like to just say hello.
Hi there, I'm Ryan Kelly. I am the Manager of Information Management here at Marine Atlantic.
And over to you, Alison.
Hi folks, I'm Alison Boutilier and I'm the Manager of BPR Project Delivery at Marine Atlantic. So Ryan and I are on the same management team.
Super, thanks very much. So I suppose just to give a quick overview of what we're going to be doing today, there's going to be no demos or anything like that. It's just going to be a bit of a chat between Derek, myself, Alison and Ryan. And we just want to have a bit of a chat about how they've implemented and how they're using our project management solution and the benefits that they're getting from that. I suppose going back, myself and Ryan first met back in Toronto at one of the Enterprise Worlds. I believe it was in the Loose Moose where we first got talking, but we met many times after that, and Ryan has become a customer since. One small thing just on housekeeping. If anybody has any questions, please add those questions into the chat, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the session. Perfect. So we might as well kind of get into it really. So Ryan, you're the manager of the information manager. So maybe we can just start off by you giving a little bit of an overview of what you have from an OpenText perspective.
Yeah, and I'll give a little bit of an overview to Marine Atlantic as well. So Marine Atlantic is a Canadian federal government crown corporation that provides ferry transportation between two provinces here in Canada, Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador. Content Server is the standard electronic content management system for the Canadian government. And when we were looking for project management solution, we really wanted to leverage Content Server with that.
Super. And what kind of a Content Server environment is it that you have deployed? How big is it and what version is it?
We are currently using version 16, but are on our way to version 21. We have about 1,400 licenses for Content Server. We're also migrating, currently in the process of migrating from on-prem to cloud.
Oh, very nice. And are you using the Smart View since you're on 16, or are you still on the Classic View?
Mostly still on the Classic View, except for our KineMatik users are using the Smart UI there.
Oh, that's nice. And do they like that interface?
Yeah, it really works very nicely with the KineMatik's tool.
Oh, cool. So I suppose since we're talking about project management and you're now using the KineMatik solution, maybe Alison, you can give us a bit of an overview of what was the status quo before that? What were you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role is kind of focused on project delivery as is the role of my entire team. We do a lot of different projects in IT, obviously, and prior to launching KineMatik at Marine Atlantic, we really didn't have any sort of standard in terms of the tools that we use to manage the projects, or how we portrayed project information to various stakeholders. So it was really a mixed bag, a little bit of everything, and bringing KineMatik into ITIM has given us an opportunity to just kind of have a one-stop shop in terms of how we manage our projects and what tools we use, build that common language across the department for project management and project delivery.
I don't think you're alone in that matter of coming from a disjointed situation. I have to put my hands up as well. We used to be like that, but we use our own solution now as well for that, which is pretty good. And so Ryan told us a little bit earlier that you kind of wanted to centralize on content server. So what was the process to look for products like? It was probably a pretty short search, really, or short list of products in the end.
It was very, very short. There are, I think you guys may be the only one that provides that level of integration between content server and a project management solution in the way that you do.
Was it a hard decision to actually decide to standardize on content server when there was only one solution then, or was that such an important thing that it really focused your minds?
I really wanted to manage the structured project data with the unstructured project documents, and that was extremely important to be able to have our project managers really work in one screen, with their reports, their Gantt charts, as well as all of the documentation that comes out of a project. To have it all in one place was very important.
Do you know, I think a lot of people really don't bring the two of those concepts together at all. Documents are documents, and project structures are project structures, and they're rarely brought together. So it's a very powerful combination indeed. So I suppose you made the choice on KineMatik. What happened after that then, Alison? What were the next steps that you went through?
Yep, so Ryan's team was initially involved in sort of getting the tool up and running on behalf of the IT division. And they approached us and wanted to kind of look at how we would expand the use of the tool again across IT. One of the first things we did, which I think has really benefited us, and just going back to Ryan's point on document management, was we decided on a standardized information architecture for project delivery. So that was, again, a departmental initiative where we said, okay, let's decide what the folder structure will be for all projects. And we were able to actually embed that standard in the KineMatik tool, which has been a huge win for us. But basically what we did was we decided to execute a pilot group across our IT division. We have three teams, separate teams within IT. We all run different types of projects. Some are vendor-led, some are really small 6-week projects, some might be 12 to 18-month SAP implementation. So we had a good kind of flavor of everything there, and we selected one person from each team. I think we had 2 from your team, if I remember correctly, Ryan, because you guys are sort of the open text gurus as well. And we met weekly, I believe, with Derek for about a year, and just really kind of went through this pilot mode in a true agile way where we used real projects. We got them up and running in the KineMatik tool. And as we discovered new features or came across any challenges, we'd bring Derek in and run through that. So it's been a real success for us. What's happened as a result of the way we ran the pilot is we have subject matter experts now in KineMatik embedded across the IT division. And we were able to also come together and agree on sort of the minimum standards and guidelines on how we would use the tool within ITIM.
That's probably an important part, actually, to put in the standards and so on. And was there much work in putting that kind of information architecture structure in place, or was it something that you had more or less put together anyway and you just needed to formalize it?
I would like to say it was there more or less, but honestly, um, it was a bit of a dog's breakfast in terms of how people were managing their folder structure. So we always look to Ryan's team to provide that expertise through our information management group. I think, Ryan, your folks came with one proposal, and we met as a larger IT group and tweaked it slightly and got everybody on the same page. And from there on, it was quite easy to launch. And Derek can probably tell you how difficult it was to get it embedded in KineMatik. That was behind the scenes. But for me, I just click create new project and I pick the template I want, and all the folder structure is created with the project, which is a huge win for us.
Oh, excellent. So you were involved a lot in helping with configuration, so Derek?
Yes, Aaron. So yeah, look, in regards to configuration, I'd love to say it was that difficult. It was really basing it on what Marine Atlantic's requirements were. And as Alison has said, I mean, they had workshops, they provided us with the information, and based on templates, based on perspective views, etc. I think we came up with a very good interface UI for their end users to be able to kind of firstly go and use it. And I think, as Alison said, I mean, obviously the idea was for it to be nice and easy where you could create a project and have that kind of structure there. In regards to the standardization, a lot of this came through, let's say, Alison's team. With obviously building on that standardization. I think, one of the things that we did learn via this was that, not just because we have a full feature set of project management tool sets doesn't mean you have to use everyone. And this is kind of what we found with Marine as well. We obviously wanted to cater for what their requirements were, and I think we actually met them. And in regards to, I suppose, the standardization, I mean, maybe Alison give maybe some benefits that she saw maybe from what her team was seeing right now that they've used it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you're right. In terms of standards, we decided to kind of start small and scale. So, we're still in the early phases of KineMatik. Although it's launched, I see us coming to you guys through Ryan over the next few years and saying, okay, now we're doing this add-on and now we're doing this add-on. So we kept our scope really small just to get everyone lined up with the minimum standards. We're seeing lots of benefits. Again, the information architecture is a huge piece. Our folks love the user interface. It is really if I can be like a PM geek, it is fun to use. It's more the user experience is more enjoyable, but then being in a spreadsheet or some kind of other standardized project management tool, we're really starting to dive into the reports. So we'll see in the next year, I think, getting some benefits out of there. And then for us, even permissions management, which can be kind of another challenge with the document management system. Having those security roles and stuff built right into the projects has been tremendous. I know twice this week I've had new people come onto projects, and I'm in KineMatik anyway. I add them as a project member and they instantly have access to all of that folder structure that we've built. So we are really starting to see the true benefits of integrating our document management system and our OpenText solution with project delivery.
Even the comment there about adding people in, that's a big difference from traditional project management solutions where there isn't that collaboration. So there's probably a big benefit from people feeling part of the project team and having access to the latest data and so on as well.
Yeah, and you don't need to have in-depth expertise on the OpenText side to manage the permissions within KineMatik. Derek, I think we set up maybe 3 roles at the project level. We have a project browser, a project member, and a project manager. So one is read-only, one owns the repository, and the other one can add documents in as well. So it's really, 3 clicks, I think, to get somebody in there with a role or to adjust the role we have. And obviously, KineMatik is linked into all of our OpenText users, so everybody in our organization is already there.
Oh, nice. And what's people's feedback actually on the Smart View, since this is something new for them? Are they finding that easier to use, or what's their impressions?
Yeah, I don't know, Ryan, you may have additional feedback, but on my end, our folks love the widgets, and we really like the Gantt chart. The ability to even export that Gantt into PDF and stuff. We're able to use that in some presentations as well. So we're big fans of the Smart View.
Yeah, it's been all positive feedback as well from my side.
Excellent. So it really seems that combining the different elements of project management is a win for everybody in the organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Excellent. Super. So yeah, we've talked a little bit about users. How hard was the training for them in general, and was it easy for them to get up to speed on the product?
It's been relatively easy, Ryan, across the division, I think, because we did that pilot and we embedded folks from every team. We kind of have a go-to person on each of our IT teams. We developed ourselves a quick start guide was what we called it. It might be 10 to 15 slides in PowerPoint of, here's your basics to get you into KineMatik. And then I found for folks that want to go a level deeper, because you always have those folks, especially in IT. KineMatik themselves, you guys provided, I believe it's 2 detailed user manuals. So we have had a few folks go in through those user manuals and kind of deep dive into different pieces to find new functionality. But overall, I do find the software very intuitive. And once you get used to using the Smart View and you're already familiar with OpenText, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Well, that's cool. So what kind of projects are you managing? Are they big, small, medium, different?
We're doing a little bit of everything, aren't we, Ryan?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, like what I find is we've got 3 divisions. We've got our IT ops folks who are doing things like cloud migrations and server upgrades and patches, and a lot of that stuff is co-led with a vendor. So they're starting to get more engaged in putting their projects on there. Ryan's team does a lot of application work within OpenText as well, so we're seeing a lot of use for those projects. Ryan's also got cyber under his portfolio, so we're tracking a lot of our cybersecurity initiatives in there. And then on my end, I'm looking at the majority of the SAP work and projects in the organization. Those are also vendor-led initiatives. So again, we've got everything from 6 weeks of tasks to, I think our longest one has probably been 12 to 14 months that we've had in a Gantt chart. I also use the tool to create sort of my own program overviews. So that's one of the things I like about KineMatik is it's very flexible. I can take all of our SAP projects that fall under my remit and just map the major phases there. And then when I'm going into executive meetings or providing updates, at our directors group, I've got a nice image there on the Gantt of the major phase of each of the SAP initiatives and how they overlap in terms of timing and stuff. So it does provide a nice visual, which I think I spend 15 minutes a month keeping that one up to date. I do a quick check-in with all of our PMs and make sure none of the milestones have moved.
Oh, that's excellent. And you're also able to show real-time data in meetings as well, which is really powerful. That saves a bit of PowerPoint time in putting together PowerPoints, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, excellent. Do you have a favorite project that you've run on it so far?
The one that's been the biggest time saver for me wasn't actually a project. We had our internal audit team come in and do a review of one of our SAP initiatives last year. Out of that review, we had an action plan. And because I tend to just want to manage everything in my life as a project, I created that action plan as its own project or initiative within KineMatik. And it involves stakeholders across the organization. So I want to say 6 or 7 different teams had some action items in there. And so I was doing a lot of meetings and trying to track who was on what. And I used the tool to keep track of all the meetings, keep track of all the notes. Little did I realize that audit was going to come back and look for updates on the action plan. So I was quite relieved when they did come back. I think it was in the last quarter here in February, and I had instant access to exactly what the status of everything was. If we had put something on hold, who made the decision, when, if we were moving ahead with something in a slightly different direction, again, who made that decision and when. So that one was a huge time saver for me. And I've talked about that even across our department and at the management team meeting, that we can kind of tweak this not to be just for our specific finite start and end projects, but other initiatives where we're trying to track actions and issues across the division.
Oh, excellent. What happens next? What are the next big plans?
So the next big thing for us is the compliance module add-on, which we're going to use to track our risk and issues. So that was one thing that our project teams, and Alison could probably speak to this as well. One thing that our project teams were still doing outside of the system was tracking the project risk and issues. So we are going to add that module on in the next couple of months and start managing project risk and issues out of the tool as well. So something both of our teams are very excited about.
I bet you that's moving from Excel again, is it?
It's moving from Excel again.
So there'll be some nice benefits having all that centralized as well, I'm sure. So yeah, I suppose just for everybody listening, the project compliance includes managing risks, issues, learnings, actions and decisions were something else that Alison had mentioned to me before. So we're going to work in collaboration there, and project change orders as well. So there's some exciting things that we're going to be able to work on together there, I think, which is nice. And it effectively provides you that single system again, Ryan, of one place to get everything. Excellent. We've only heard good things so far, Alison. We pull up the mat and see, are there any issues that were encountered over the last 12 or 18? Actually, how long has it been? How long? Ryan, do you remember when it was first deployed? It must be 18 months ago at this stage, I guess, is it?
I think it's at least
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the question, Alison, of any issues or difficulties.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we went through the pilot and we tested and played with as much as we could, but one of the things we didn't deep dive into when we were in pilot mode was closing a project. And so Derek knows because I've sent this one over his way. But and again, I think I said this when I spoke with you guys previously, some people would call it a bug and some people would call it a feature, but we discovered that when you actually close a project and mark it complete, it actually shuts down access to add or revise anything in that project directory. And so we have to be very cognizant of when we close or complete a project, not done until, we don't have to update any more of the documents and the raids are all closed and our lessons learned are completed. So that was one thing I think that we've got you folks going back to look for. The other thing, I think if I was going to kind of go back and do it again, I would have maybe tried to look a little bit more at the reporting features. Now that we're really expanding the use across IT, I think Colin, our CIO, who Ryan and I report into, is going to be coming pretty quickly and saying, okay, I want a report where I can see this, this, and this. So I think that'll be, once we get the compliance piece in, I'm sure, Ryan, that'll be one of the next things that we start to look at is, okay, now our standards have increased. We're doing all the compliance piece here. What types of dashboard reporting do we want across the tool? But I know, Derek, when we were building KineMatik for Marine Atlantic, we did configure it in such a way that we were using those, I think you guys called them categories. I'm not a techie person, that it'll be easy to sort of start building the reports in the background.
Yeah, and I think you're correct. So we've definitely a lot of placeholders in place to, let's say, address reporting going forward. I know when we initially did the deployment, as I said, it was the idea we'd look at certain aspects and build on those as you are going through it. And again, like everything else, there's new requirements come up every time, a new project comes on board and what you actually need to report on. So yeah, that's obviously something that we will definitely be working on in the future. It's funny as well, just going back to your point about the feature versus bug. Our dev team would definitely call that a feature, but I agree with you from a working perspective. But what I will say to you is we actually are working on options as well for Marine Atlantic to be able to make that a little bit more flexible for you. So just to kind of point out, like, it's not the case it's out of the box and you have to go with it. That there's some definitely enhancements that are in place and kind of coming your way in the near future.
Actually, just back to the version that you're on, Ryan. You said you're on 16.2, I think. Are you going to go through an upgrade soon, or have you gone through an upgrade while KineMatik is being used?
We are in the process of doing an upgrade now.
Any issues with the upgrade or anything, or is that all working out reasonably well?
Alison, I think you had one small issue you worked through, but for the most part, it's been pretty painless.
Oh, excellent. That's good. Actually, Ryan, I'm not sure if Ryan or Alison said about vendor access as well. Do your current vendors have access to Content Server?
So yeah, the way we set the majority of our vendors up, they do get access to open text. We set them up with an actual Marine Atlantic account. And we've just in the last, I want to say 6 to 8 weeks, it feels like, Ryan, started to grant vendor access within the KineMatik tool and bring them into the tool. For me, we close our fiscal year on March 31st, and we're starting 3 or 4 new projects in the SAP world. And especially with the compliance module coming, we've kind of said, okay, we want everyone in KineMatik. We don't want to be doing any more of the vendor has a Gantt, we have a Gantt, the vendor has a spreadsheet, we have KineMatik. So that's really been happening quite organically and without any issue, to be honest with you. I haven't even had any of the vendors come back and ask for training. I think our PMs are just sitting and kind of going through the basics with them in an hour or so, and they're in there and using the tools now.
Oh, excellent. Looking back on what you've done, are there any changes, or would you have done anything differently, do you think?
I don't know, Ryan. Like for me, the one thing we did right, and I can see that now looking back, is again that information architecture piece. I can't stress that enough. That was, you know, when you doing projects and you talk about the WIFM, what's in it for me, for our project managers to have that all set up and up and running, I think was the WIFM statement for a lot of those guys. I liked how we started small and we kind of scaled our scope as we've gone along. I think that's allowed us to kind of build up some momentum and some credibility with the tool within the department. Again, for me, I think if I was going to do anything differently, it would probably be a bit more focus on the reports when we were going through that pilot phase, so that we could take advantage of that stuff earlier on.
So it sounds like a recommendation for others who might be looking at doing this would be maybe start small, focus on information architecture and maybe reports, and make sure you're collecting that data kind of upfront as well. That sounds cool.
Yep.
Super. Yeah, I think that kind of covers most of the topics that we were looking to really discuss today. And just as a summary, it seems like it's really helping you manage your projects, manage the information associated with your projects.
Yes.
And reporting up front seems to be something that will really help. Now, there seems to have been
a few questions there.
Yeah, no,
do you want me to read them out for you? Okay. So.
I think I have them here actually. So there was one just came in from Olivier there. How did you manage the integration of historical files, if you did? Any issues?
We really didn't go back and do the historical ones, so we didn't import any projects into the system. It was a go forward project.
And you know, sometimes I think you need to make that decision. You close out everything using whatever you were using and start everything new. We did exactly the same when we switched over as well, actually. It just makes things easier. You're not trying to keep 2 different systems in sync and so on. So I think that was probably the right approach as well. Then there's a question from Olaf. How important is content access security and control when working with internal and external participants? So this goes back to the roles, I guess, Alison. So do you give external people access to the entire set of data in the project?
We do. Our roles as either a program browser or a project browser and a project member versus project manager would give us enough of that flow. If we had to go in and lock down a specific folder, we could still do that using, you know, the standard open text functionality. But for us, especially where we're kind of a federal government crown corporation, we tend to be open by design, is kind of what Ryan coaches us through. So there's not a lot of quote unquote confidential stuff there. What I will say is I don't store our statements of work or our contracts in the KineMatik tool. That's just speaking for myself. We manage that separately in a separate folder. So that would be the one piece of confidential piece for us. We also, when we're doing like data conversion and stuff, we would be very diligent to make sure that any of our data files that had, you know, specific private information in them would be locked down, you know, completely outside of just the project roles.
Okay. Another related question came in there actually on sharing. Bill is asking, are you using CoreShare for collaboration? It sounds like probably not.
No, it's not really something that's available on standing offer through the Government of Canada's relationship with OpenText at this time.
Okay. And then it looks like it's a question from a HR person looking to ask an awkward question in an interview. What was the worst situation in the project, and how was it solved? I'm not sure if you have any examples of kind of project issues that the tool might have helped you get over or not.
No, I mean, there's nothing that comes to mind off the top of my head of, any really seriously bad situation and how we had to use the tool to solve it. The best example I can probably give is the one with audit where, that was almost like we inadvertently used KineMatik to solve some problems when we were asked for updates afterwards. And throughout the pilot and the development, we didn't run into any real gotchas, did we, Derek? That I can remember.
No, I don't think so.
It's like foreign history to me now, but the tool came relatively ready to use, and we tweaked it in a few different ways for Marine Atlantic. And again, it was very agile kind of as we went through it. So I don't remember any big kind of showstoppers of, oh, we hit a brick wall and this isn't going to work for us.
Cool. Super. That looks like that's the question. So I'd just like to close out and thank you both so much, Ryan and Alison, for joining us today and sharing your experiences. It's been really interesting, and I'm looking forward to working with you again in the future. Thank you everyone for joining the call, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Bye now.
Thanks everyone.
Bye now.
Bye.